Hello and welcome. You're watching my video blog called Two Sides of a Coin. This time I have picked up the issue of the slowdown in Indian economy. And there is no debate, at least insofar as the issue of slowdown is concerned, because both sides agree that there is a slowdown. The debate is over the reasons for the slowdown. And it's very interesting because the person who actually came up with a scathing commentary on the Indian economy is none other than a former finance minister, Yashwant Sinha, who happens to be part of the ruling party. He comes up with an article in a national newspaper listing a few important issues and telling us that, look, this is the state of the economy, it is heading towards a hard landing. And guess who counters his arguments? The very next day comes another commentary in another newspaper written by his son, Jayant Sinha, who happens to be part of the aviation ministry, who was earlier removed as a junior minister in the finance ministry. He counters the arguments that have been put forward by his father. So very quickly we go through the major issues. The father talks about three major points based on which he comes to the conclusion that we are in a state of a disaster insofar as the economy is concerned. He talks about growth rate, he talks about performance of the service sectors, and he talks about government's economic policies. So talking about growth rate, Yashwant Sinha says there is a steady decline over the last 5 to 6 quarters, which means that the economy is on a downward spin. Now, this is again echoing the sentiment of few other leaders like Subramaniam Swamy as well of the BJP again, who brought out the same issue of how the economy is heading downwards. And Yashwant Sinha cautions saying that we are heading to a crash landing at this rate. The Sun counters that point. He says that it is unfair to come up with a narrow set of facts. It's unfair to come to sweeping conclusions at this stage, just when processes are being initiated, just when systems are being put in place. These are temporary discomforts that we are going through, and it is a matter of time that the economy is going to turn around. The second important point that Yashwant Sinha highlights, and I'm going to quote him here, when he talks about the performance of service sectors. Now, he says private investment has shrunk like never before in 2 decades. Industrial production has collapsed. Agriculture is in a state of distress. Construction industry, which is a big employer of the workforce, is in doldrums. The rest of the service sector, he says, is in the slow lane. So, therefore, he believes that the economy is in distress. How does the Sun counter that? The Sun says that infrastructure development is a long drawn process. There are no overnight miracles that can happen. What is important is that long-term plans have been initiated and results are already visible, and some of it will be visible in the long run. What he argues is that a massive infrastructure build-out is lowering costs across board in the economy. Build-out clearly visible in railways, rural electrification, national highways, rural roads, housing and air connectivity. So he's trying to tell us that we are trying to speed up connectivity, communication, transportation, because that is in turn going to reflect in the important economic parameters. And he also highlights the issue of a lower cost economy, which will increase production and which will sustain growth. So that's the counter argument coming from Jayant Sinha. Now, another important issue which Yashwant Sinha highlights is the economic policies of the current government, focusing on demonetization and GST. So he says that there has been a back-to-back disruption of the Indian economy which has crippled the economy. He has said, and I quote, demonetization has proved to be an unmitigated economic disaster. A badly conceived, poorly implemented GST has played havoc with the businesses and sunk many of them. Countless millions have lost their jobs. Well, how does the Sun counter that argument? The Sun says that these are game-changing efforts, and once again harping on the issue of these temporary discomforts, the little collateral damage. He is underplaying all of that. What he is saying is that this is an effort to formalize the Indian economy, because the larger argument here is that, you know, when you don't have a record of your income and expenditure as a country, how do you make plans for a country like that? When there is a parallel economy thriving, you have no idea of the level and the scale and the magnitude of those businesses. Unless you formalize it, unless you make it part of the system, how are you even going to move ahead as a country? So Jayant Sinha highlights the importance of formalization of the Indian economy. He says tax collections will go up in the long run, friction in the economy will be reduced, the GDP will go up, and citizens are going to be able to establish credit more effectively and as soon as transaction records are digitized. So the importance on cashless economy. The third point which the father highlights is on reform, and he says it's a hogwash. There is no reform happening. All that you have are welfare schemes that are being projected as reform, because he gives the example of the Saubhagya scheme and says that's just a scheme that was pre-existing from the UPA era, and it's literally like giving you old wine in a new bottle. The son, of course, argues very strongly on the point of structural reforms, and he says these are reforms unleashed by the Modi government. What this reform does, according to him, is it creates a new India which is going to be globally cost competitive. He talks about an innovation-driven economy which will be equitable, available to everybody to enjoy the merits of such an economy. So those are the points that the Sun has highlighted. Basically, the argument has been around whether the reasons for slowdown are technical or not. So Yashwant Sinha has come up with this entire argument to say that the reasons are not technical, they are imposed by the current government. The son, Jayant Sinha, of course, effectively argues, saying that that is not correct, and such sweeping conclusions is not a fair picture of the Indian economy. I leave it to you to decide which side you are on. Do write into me at ali.afrida@gmail.com. Until next Tuesday, when I come up with another issue of debate, take care and goodbye.